And they are off. There we go then. Okay, so just to dive straight into this, for anyone who doesn't know, the PSP version of FF1 relies pretty heavily around a major equipment glitch. You can basically swap from a weapon to an armor slot or vice versa, and as you use the memory on the cursor, and so you load into, for example, from the warrior's weapon to the white mage's armor at the same time, as you select it, it loads the weapon values as armors. So the hammer shares a slot with the knight's armor. Everyone now has knight's armors because you bought a hammer. And we can use that to get some really powerful equipment far earlier than it should be reasonable to get. As far as schedule goes, I'm going to be blunt, I don't remember the command for it, but there is another race directly after this one at the very least. They are doing back-to-back races today, so we'll see how that factors into things as well. I'm loving the all Barney party from Crrool, but I'm sure that must get confusing. Oh, Zance is having a bit of trouble with this menu here. So the idea in this menu is to get the Judgment Staff on everyone's weapons. Judgment Staff is a really late game item. If you use it it's a powerful staff, whatever, it increases your magic a whole bunch. But more importantly, if you use it from the menu, it casts Flare. And Flare is ridiculously powerful, but also takes about 8 seconds in terms of animation, so not ideal, but good enough, especially this early on. One thing that's really interesting to me is my first time seeing it in like a competitive environment is that the runners are allowed to watch each other's streams, and in this case, this stream. So Zan's popping up in chat to tell us how bad that menuing was. Generally speaking, on like if you're looking for PB attempts, you would not be happy with anything over 3 for Garland. Depending on your RNG and menuing early, though, going a bit over 3 minutes for Garland is fine. It's also going to be interesting here because so I will throw my hands up now and say I learned this game about 2 months ago, and I'm far less experienced when it comes to the newer routes. Crrool is to the older routes, and Crrool is sticking with, I think, one of the not just the old route, but the one before that. I might be wrong on that, but we'll see how it plays out. There are kind of 3 different routes that people picked up with this game. So when the equipment glitch was being used, it was originally the Barbarian Sword was the big thing, which is a super powerful late game item. It's the reward from not just a post-game dungeon, the last of 5 post-game dungeons. And it's the reward from the final boss of that. It's the only weapon in the game that increases both your character's strength and your attack damage at the same time. And that creates some absolutely stupid multipliers that mean your damage goes through the roof. You don't get that for a couple of towns still, though. And then there are some enemies that you can't run away from, and if you run into, say, 6 enemies in an unrunnable encounter, you kind of get just stuck using the Judgment Staff and flaring them. The route then adjusted to a White Mage route, where you picked up a whole bunch of different staves that have different item casts. So in the same way that the Judgment Staff uses Flare, you would get one that uses, say, Lazara. And things like that would be used throughout the run. The kind of current accepted route is the Black Mage route. So Barbarians or White Mage, Black Mage. The Black Mage route focuses on getting the Black Mage enough levels to actually buy those spells, rather than having to get the items for them. And so it means a little bit of extra leveling, and it can mean a few more points where RNG factors in a bit more. But if it works out, which more often than not it does, it's faster than the White Mage route. Also, these matches are best of 3. We're in the top 16 of this tournament, so looking to go through here. First, this is the first match, but they will be playing the second one directly afterwards. So, yeah, it'll be big for them to see if they can advance. And they already know who they're facing in the next round. The winner of this one is going to be going up against Porsyth, so it doesn't get any easier from here. Alright, straight into Pirates. So you're seeing that Judgment Staff Flare animation. It's about 8 seconds worth, but yeah. When you've got 9 enemies, it's better than punching them all. Interestingly, the Zance made back quite a bit of time there from that early menuing in Chaos Shrine. Not Chaos Shrine. Oh, Zance getting our, NPC'd. It's a pretty common thing to do this shop before fighting the pirates, just for that exact reason. If you fight the pirates first, then the NPCs reappear, and that can mean getting blocked on your path through by a green-haired character there. Alright, Crrool getting a really friendly boat ride. Boat rides are one of the big factors of RNG early on. Like, the sea encounters can be absolutely terrible to escape from. So, being able to ride a boat to Elfheim with no encounters is incredible. Zance getting it as well. Both getting an encounter pretty much as soon as they step off the boat. And we do see Zance enter the Elven Castle. It's a tiny optimization, but just reset that threat level and get a step closer to Marsh Cave. So you're already seeing now one of the biggest factors in any FF1 race is there's no encounter manipulation. This is not like the NES version. There is no RNG manip, there's no way to set up your encounters in any way, shape or form. You just kind of have to roll with the punches in this game. And sometimes that can mean fights that are difficult to run away from. Sometimes that can mean 3 steps into an ambush. Sometimes that means you'll get through the entirety of Marsh Cave with 0 fights, but then get 8 on the way to Astos. Just kind of see what happens and hope for the best. As one of the things that makes it such a fun game to race is that if the skill level will show in a longer race, you will see the better runners pushing ahead and making those key adjustments. And a big part of those adjustments is knowing how to deal with bad RNG. At the same time, there's enough RNG that a runner who's slightly below or slightly unfavored can very easily cause an upset. And I don't think anyone would question it if I said that Zance is definitely the underdog here. And, I mean, fair and unbiased commentary be damned. Who am I if I'm not rooting for an underdog? So they're both in Marsh Cave now. Crrool getting a couple of encounters on the way through. Encounters in Marsh Cave can be terrifying. There's a lot of undead, which are notorious for paralysis. Another big part of the run that you'll see as well is menu management. We use cursor set to memory as part of the glitch, the equipment glitch mentioned earlier. One factor of that is that then it plays into battles. So remembering where your cursor is in battle and setting it up accordingly is actually a really big element here. And so having those three characters using the Judgment Staff and not the Warrior, if you get no encounters between the pirates and the Pisca Demons that you have to fight, then you just get to sweep straight through with the same menu, just hold X and get that whole fight done. So there is really not much between these two right now. A couple of floors, a marsh cave, and that's it. So one interesting thing to note here is the route that Crrool is using doesn't care too much about early experience. The route that Zance is using does. And so Astos, 9 times out of 10, plays fine. You know, he's got to, for it to go wrong, he has to specifically use death, hit with death, and hit the black mage specifically. It's bad if it hits the white mage, it's kind of bad if it hits the thief, but it's great if it hits the warrior. If it hits the warrior, it's actually really good. But yeah, if it hits the black mage, then you're in for a bit of a rough time. You have to do a couple of extra levels or just adjust on the fly and figure out a new strategy. Of course, Astos can just punch someone instead, and that's not an issue at all. Oh wow, that's Death on the Warrior. And it hits! Okay, Zance actually just got a huge boost there, I think. So this is in a way slow because you then have to menu to Phoenix down the Warrior. On the flip side, Astos gives a crazy amount of experience for this stage of the game. And there is a section later on where we want to grind levels in the route that Zance is using, the Black Mage route, so that the Black Mage and the White Mage both hit level 19 by the point where you're buying spells. Because you need to be level 19 in order for the, at that point, Black Wizard and White Wizard to have level 5 magic, which is Teleport and Healara, which are both integral to this run. Teleport is just incredibly fast, and Healara is absolutely necessary for Chaos, and pretty required for the rest of the run before it as well. So yeah, Zance actually got a nice boost there, because that should make his level grind a little bit quicker. And honestly, given that Zance started off about 30 to 40 seconds behind at Garland, this has been neck and neck the entire way since. Here we're going to see the first big divergence though. Zance going in to buy magic, Crrool just continuing on his way. Crrool does not do this route. On the other hand, Zance will also pick up the gold needles here that Crrool will then have to pick up later on, so there are some kind of adjustments. The more notable thing is that Zance will save a lot of time when it comes to unrunnable encounters. Oh, Zance getting one of the rough fights here. Sahagin Big Eye is a nightmare. You can get paralyzed by gazes, and Sahagin's will outspeed you, so you can't run away. Also, Crrool just walking through the biggest, not biggest by far, but the most infuriating case of RNG in this game, because every time you lose time to this, it feels like the dumbest thing. But the brooms can block the doorway. And I don't think I've been on commentary while anyone's been broomed yet, but I want to see it at some point. Maybe I'm just cursing the runners by asking for this now, but I want to see somebody get broomed. Crrool escapes cleanly. Jeez, Zance is getting hit. Oh, and that is a 6 enemy ambush. Zance is getting hit by a lot of encounters here. Crrool taking an ambush as well, but only half the size, so not quite as much time. The brooms in Matoya's cave can walk around aimlessly, and so they'll just like their movement is complete RNG, and there is a chance they will block the doorway. And if they're on the Matoya side of the door, they don't just stand in front of the door; they stand like a tile down, where there's like a 1 tile inside the door that you can stand in. So you don't just have to wait for them to move once. You then have to wait for them to move again and hope they don't move back in front of the door. Zance falling behind a little bit here on that trip to Matoya. A lot of rough encounters there. A lot of really rough encounters on the way through. So we'll see Crrool do the next big menu of this game. Spoke earlier about the equipment glitch. Early on, it's just you get Knight's Armors and you get Judgment Staves. Here we'll see a lot of Thieves' Armlets. And the key here is that they boost your agility. So running away becomes far easier. I was about to talk about the Sage's Staff as well, but Crrool doesn't do that one. Crrool will not pick up the right side chest there. And we'll grab those gold needles now, though. So right now it kind of makes sense in a way for Crrool to be ahead. This isn't... Crrool, on the one hand, was just ahead anyway, I think. But also Zance is now taking a slightly longer route. Whether that catches up to Crrool later on in places like Sunken Shrine is a big question there. Alrighty, so we get those Thieves' Armlets, and... there are the Sage's Staves. So the Sage's Staff is just a much higher intelligence one than the Judgment Staff. Just a really good staff for the magic users to have, just to give them that extra little boost of damage and moving forwards. And the way they're equipped here for this route, you equip one to the Thief just because it has to go from the Warrior's armor. But the mages are both able to equip the staves regardless. They don't need to actually have them glitched onto them. So you glitch 2 into existence. One goes to the white mage, one goes to the thief, because they're the 2 characters next to the warrior. And then in the next menu, you'll equip a new weapon to the thief, in doing so unequipping the sage's staff, so you can then go and equip it to the black mage. It's really elegant. It's actually like my favorite part of this route, just because it's so simple, but it's just like so cleanly carried out, where you pick up exactly the items you need and equip them in exactly the right sequence to end up with everything perfect. in the most efficient way possible. Crrool, on the other hand, is just going to go and cause some destruction and devastation to the landscape by blowing up an entire section of terrain, but Zance won't be too far behind on that one either. Ooh, another 7 enemy ambush for Zance as well. Jeez. Alrighty, so I mentioned earlier that Crrool is doing the older of 3 routes, or kind of commonly used routes at this point. The Barbarian Sword route, the White Mage route, and the Black Mage route. Zance is doing the Black Mage route, which is the newest of the 3. Crrool is doing the Barbarian Sword route, which is the oldest of the 3. The aforementioned Barbarian Sword will be in the next town for Crrool, and it is a ridiculous weapon. It's a post-game reward. It is incredibly strong, and it pretty much murders most things in one hit. Every single route will pick up Barbarian Swords for the major damage dealers, but the Barbarian Sword route is very focused around it, whereas the other routes obviously focus more on the White Mage and the Black Mage, as the names might suggest. And there are just swords on everyone. Let's go. Oh, interesting. I didn't know this route did the character swap here. I've not actually seen the Barbarian Sword route before. It is worth pointing out, and I did not know it did that character swap here. That one is really useful for an upcoming area, so both routes will swap the characters around, but Zance will do it a little bit later on because he has an extra little menu to do in Crescent Lake. So if you're rooting for Zance here, you want to see... Well, I mean, firstly, Earth Cavern can throw some real curveballs at you in terms of speedrunning this game. If you get ambushed by Cockatrice, that's terrifying. You might just have your whole party petrified and have to reset, and you'll see a lot of runners take a safety save going into the 3rd floor of Earth Cavern. The other thing you'll want to see is the Pisca Demons that we fought in Marsh Cave, because they are unrunnable here, and every unrunnable encounter that we get at this point, the unrunnables are faster for Zance for the most part than they are for Crrool. And we do, see Crrool taking that safety save. Just in case. 4 Cockatrice is not the only terrifying one. I think it's the most terrifying, but there are a few down here that can definitely cause some problems. There's also a 9 undead encounter which can just paralyze an entire party. Oh god, Zance is... There we go, an 8 undead encounter. Gets away from it pretty smoothly though. Zance is really having a rough time with these encounters. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that the Barbarian Sword is really overpowered and will one-shot pretty much like everything except for bosses. Well, this boss is kind of an exception because it does get one-shot by the Barbarian Sword. Oh, not from mages apparently. I'm not used to seeing that one. Warrior and Thief will one-shot the vampire comfortably. Interesting to note that neither of them did the boat puzzle. I mean, it's hardly surprising. The boat puzzle is a 1 in 6 chance of just being able to immediately leave the dungeon after Vampire. You don't tend to see it in races, but some people will do it. Some will go for it, especially if they're behind. And we're going to see a judgment staff here from Crrool. So now we're seeing where this route becomes a little bit slower. Oh, accidentally used the wrong item on the black mage as well. If this white mage, okay. If I was going to say, if the white mage gets paralyzed here, this could be really bad news for Crrool, but gets away with it. Oh, did Zance take a safety save or not? I didn't see it. Might just think he's behind and that's a preemptive, so Zance can get away from that cleanly. It's worth noting, preemptive encounters, no matter what you're up against, preemptives you can run away from. Straight away, your first action, you will successfully run away. So even an unrunnable encounter, you can run away from if it's preemptive. But the flip side of that is that ambushes with this route can just spell game over. And to be honest, even in the base game, ambushes can just spell game over at this point, because Cockatrice here are harsh. Petrify on attack is just ridiculous. Petrify, for those who don't know, acts basically like instant death. The cure for it is a different item. That's why they picked up those gold needles earlier. But if your whole party's petrified, game over. If your party is a combination of petrified and KO'd, game over. Oh, and Zance getting blocked by bats. Bats work under the same rules as NPCs, or the same rules as brooms. Just RNG movement. And yeah, one of them just happened to walk in Zance's way there. That said, Zance has definitely gained back some time in this Earth Cave. Crrool had some really unfortunate encounters on that third floor, and Zance got away pretty nicely there. Petrify and Stone are the same thing, yeah. I think it's actually referred to as Stone in this game. Hello. For anyone joining now, it's a speedrun FF1 tournament played on the PSP version because of a pretty major equipment glitch that they've utilized quite a bit at this point. They have some ridiculously powerful weapons. And this match, I think it's fair to say, Crrool is very favored here. Crrool is a 2-time tournament winner for the Total Chaos tournament, and if I'm not mistaken, the third time was runner-up. And going into this, Crrool was the 6th seed out of the group stage, where Zance was the 11th seed. Crrool went 6-2, dropping 2 matches to Double Drop, who came out as the number 1 seed overall, whereas Zance ended up 5-3, so that 6th seed for Crrool might seem a little unfair in some ways, and I think there are definitely a few people who would place Crrool higher in their standings. And just like that, Zance is ahead. Just like that. That is FF1 in a nutshell. The PSP version has absolutely no RNG manipulation. The equipment glitch is a massive factor. It means that it's by far the fastest speedrun of the different versions. But it also makes it really good for racing, because a better runner will win the vast majority of the time, but the times that they don't, that RNG can just swing a match every now and then. And that is why this top 16 is best of 3. For those of you who weren't around earlier, this is the first of those 3. Their second one is immediately afterwards. So in about an hour and a half time, you can see match 2 between these two and potentially have a winner, potentially have a tie game. Getting a little ahead of ourselves with that one though. Still got to see who wins the first one before we can figure out who stands where going into the second. So I think it's worth noting, I mentioned the 3 different routes earlier. The White Mage route is still pretty heavily used in this tournament. I think the Black Mage route is by far the most common. The white mage route is still pretty heavily used, and if I'm not mistaken, Crrool is the only person in the tournament who is still doing the barbarian sword route. So there is, as much as this is Zance the underdog versus Crrool the kind of old guard, it's also Crrool kind of, you know, standing up for the old version of this run where Zance is in with the new and improved route. And there are strengths and weaknesses to both. It isn't a massive difference. So as much as the black mage route is considered more consistent and generally, I think, considered the better route by quite a bit, there are parts where the black mage route will struggle, and there are parts where the barbarian sword route will struggle. And in fact, we're already past one of the big choke points, or not choke points, but kind of hindrances for the black mage route, which is having to make a few extra shop runs earlier. Have to pick up ethers, so you go to the shop in Provoker instead of the one at the very start in Cornelia, and you have to pick up those spells for your mages. And again, I did not see Zance take a safety save going into the third floor. Might have happened, I might have just missed it. I was watching Crrool for a lot of that, but could prove to be a terrifying prospect moving forwards here for Zance. Jesus, all these undead encounters, just like tempting fate here. Just like posing as a warning. Like, you sure you didn't want to? Ogre Chiefs are fine. Ogre Chiefs, you're happy to see at this point. Absolutely one of the best encounters you can get on this floor. Especially as a preemptive, because that means you just run away straight away. Any fight would be fine as a preemptive. Oh wow, Crrool actually taking a Judgment Staff on 6 raids there. And Zance showing exactly why, I guess. That is double paralysis. I'm Paralysis Raider. And there we go. Zance, this is where the Black Mage route comes in a little bit better. Fire takes half the time that Flare does, so Black Mage being able to use Fire there is just a little bit nicer than having to use a Judgment Staff. Also means you don't have to go digging through your item menu to get there to begin with. That might still come up later on. Cavern of Ice does have a few encounters where even the Black Mage route has to resort to that Judgment Staff. Oh, Zance taking the top route through this floor. There are 3 different routes through this floor, and I think the middle route is the fastest, but it's by like 2 steps. I can't remember the difference between the top and bottom routes. But I know the second fastest is, yeah, like 2 extra steps compared to the middle route. Crrool also taking the top route. Zance did, of course, save there, because Lich, for anyone who doesn't know Lich, you're about to see arguably the hardest boss fight in the game for this run. In fact, I don't even think it's arguably. This is the only boss that can one-shot you on turn 1. No, Zance just getting 2 clean hits in, good damage rolls, and there goes Lich. See if Crrool has the same sort of luck. Just finishing flaring some undead that were paralyzing up the whole party. So Zance taking a healthy lead, leaving Lich. And there is that safety save. Absolutely. So we'll see these little cutscenes after each of the 4 fiends. They open up a side dungeon. We won't do any of those. And 2 quick attacks from Crrool. Down goes Lich. Perfect. No blizzards today. Or Blizzaras today. Okay, so the end of that Lich fight, the time difference between them was 56 seconds. So Zance has about a 1 minute lead here. Oh. Movement in this game is a really interesting thing to note as well. Each person seems to have different methods of understanding exactly where they're meant to move at which points for airship rides, boat rides, that kind of thing. There are a few different kind of key features that you can focus on. And it's kind of always interesting to see how different runners do it. And Zance there took an extra couple of tiles. I was going to say steps, but it's not really steps when you're in water. Oh, interesting thing to note here. So the level grind coming up, Zance would love to see either his warrior or thief or both get poisoned by the enemies in this area. And about half the enemies in this area can inflict poison. You love to see it. Doesn't happen very often because more often than not you escape on turn 1. But if it happens, it's fantastic because you actually want the warrior and the thief dead at this point. Alright, so we're going to see another big menu from Zance here. This is one that both of them will do a menu here. I don't know if they'll do the same menu. I'm far less experienced with the Barbarian Sword route. So they'll go for the Black Garbs, and then that's just extra agility. Just again, there'll be 3 kind of agility boosting armors that they'll get throughout this run. And it'll be the Black Garbs is the second of the 3, the Thieves' Armor earlier was the first, and the Survival Vest will be the third. And then you also saw Lust Daggers equipped to the 2 mages there, and that is why Zance has to swap these characters here. So the Lust Dagger is a physical weapon, firstly, so it's a better damage dealing attack, like basic attack. And it also gives an extra +10 agility, which is hugely important moving into this next area, because firstly, you want your warrior and your thief dead. And it's actually important to note that Crrool did get hit with poison there, so yeah, it does not stop for the armors. He's just does not get the Last Daggers. All Barbarian Sword all day. I assume you know what, I'm saying all of this. I assume the Barbarian Sword route takes the deaths to level up the mages for the magic. I am not 100% on that. And I actually think he cured the poison, right? Yeah, he did actually cure that poison, so I don't know if any of our experts in chat can fill me in on the Barbarian Sword route a bit more, but Zance taking this lead, though, we'll roll with it. This is the one place where the Judgment Staff still gets used, and so it is a little bit slower from Zance's side. But those mages having Lost Daggers means that their attacks are actually kind of worth using. Also, another huge place for safety saves. Ice Cavern. Piscademons from earlier, still unrunnable. Cockatrice from earlier can still petrify you. And now there's a couple of extra terrifying and unrunnable encounters to get thrown into the mix. Oh, undead enemies from earlier can still paralyze you. Very on cue. But there's also the Ice Gigas and Winter Wolf encounter, which is unrunnable. And there are Mind Flayers, which can paralyze your entire pile. Speaking of which, there is that unrunnable. Zance identifying it quickly and going in for the kill before trying to run away, which is good. It's always one of those big time losses you'll see is when somebody instinctively tries to run from an unrunnable encounter. But Mind Flayers can paralyze your entire party and then deal insane amounts of damage. You see Dark Wizards in this dungeon, which can just one-shot your party if you get ambushed. Oh, Piscademons on Crrool's side, so that's a Judgment Staff. Can't run from those. Oh, Zance trying to run from 9 undead and gets it. Nice. That's a terrifying encounter if you don't get the run. And the one enemy I didn't mention yet was white dragons, and hopefully we won't see any of those here from either player, because that is a brutal wave for a run to go. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Zance during the group stage who had a match where he wiped in Ice Cave twice, both to Dark Fighter ambushes, one before the level grind and one after it. So hopefully his luck is a little bit better today. Alright, so Evil Eye, the first encounter. This is a forced encounter here. You will always get an Evil Eye on this square, and that is exactly what you want to see. You want to see Thundara wiping out the 2 melee characters. And this sets up your mages to level grind. It's an insane amount of experience for this stage of the game. You need your mages to get to level 18. And every time you step on it, you will get that encounter again and again and again. And so the aim here is just to get to... It varies between people. The general consensus, I think, in races is level 18. You can go to level 17 plus 1 fight. And sometimes that will put you at 18, depending on how your other encounters earlier in the run have gone. It'll always be 17.5 or 18. It never goes higher than that. 18 is enough because you get enough encounters in Citadel of Trials to then push you to 19. 17.5 normally gets you there, but it's a little riskier and then it's slower if you then have to make up the levels later on. Also, I know different people use different terms for the spike tile, forced encounter, trap tiles, just because there are actual tiles with spikes on them. Also, Zance getting an encounter mid-grind. That is not ideal. This is definitely your party at their most fragile in the entire run, so getting an encounter here is kind of terrifying. Alrighty, so you see Crrool heal up the mages there, and we'll get those melee characters killed. You just defend until they both die, which usually is just a Thundara, but Crrool's were low enough that... that's going in the wrong direction. That's also the wrong direction. Oh, and that is a... Well, thankfully he's defending anyway, so it's not too bad, and there's the Thundara. Warrior down. Zance, meanwhile, done with the grind, picked up that Leatherstone and gone. It's a very common error for people learning this game to do their level grind straight away and then forget to pick up the Leatherstone and leave, and that is a terrifying mistake to make. And so you'll see a lot of runners pick up the Leatherstone before they do the level grind, just because if you miss that, that is a huge circle that you have to make back. Once you've got that, Zance, you'll see, has dropped back down to where we were earlier. Mind Flayer is fine. That is not dragons. Remoraz is fine. That is also not dragons. Oh, there is a dragon. Gets away cleanly, though. Doesn't even go to kill it. Kind of surprised by that, but got away, so it worked out. White dragons are absurdly fast for this stage of the game. So firstly, you're technically not meant to be at Ice Cavern first. You're meant to do Mount Gold before you do Ice Cavern. But Mount Gold by canoe takes a long time, and that's a lot of encounters on the way. And Ice Cavern you have to do at some point anyway to get an airship, so you might as well do it as early as possible. That's why the encounters here are so terrifying, though, is technically you're not meant to be doing them yet. Those are level 18s for Crrool. And a slight difference on this route, he'll actually revive the warrior here. The Black Mage route cares more about the Thief's damage. So it will focus on... It will just revive the Thief. The warrior is still dead for Zance. And that's just so that the Thief gets those few extra levels moving through the next couple of dungeons. And wow, that was a terrifying moment for Crrool. Okay. A Faraga Bear from the Dark Wizard can just wipe the party. Gets out cleanly, though. Oh, and then an ambush by Undead. What is... Zance started with all the bad luck, but Crrool has definitely picked it up a bit more moving forwards. Alright, so Zance making way over to Citadel of Trials. Citadel technically an optional dungeon, but I mean, the amount it helps, it's never going to be considered optional in a speedrun. Also, that was a really terrifying encounter for Zance, because that's one that... Oh god, Crrool did not get away first. No? Okay, got that. God, so many of the fights in this game can just end a run if you're unprepared, and you don't prepare for everything. You can make safety saves every 10 seconds, but then you're just going to lose the race by losing too much time to saving. So, yeah, Sandworms can Earthquake you, that's a one-shot. Crrool could have got petrified and paralyzed by all of those enemies, and cleanly through, though. Okay, so Citadel of Trials, little teleport puzzle, and by puzzle I mean really easy path through. The hardest thing about this is remembering which direction you have to run in when you come out of a teleporter. That's the hardest part of this dungeon, to be honest. And it's like a fraction of a second to let it load and then run. An ambush by Medusas. So firstly, it's slow. But secondly... Oh no. Oh, Zance. And he gets there. Judgment Staff is fine. Meanwhile, Crrool is going to pick up that airship. Oh, so coming up as well, one of the reasons the level grind only goes to roughly 18 is the encounter that Zance will get just after the doorway ahead of him. It's technically runnable. It's, again, like a... I'll go with Ambush Tile. Ambush Tile feels like that implies that it'll be an ambushed attack, which it's not. Trap Tile. We'll go with Trap Tile. These Nightmares are on a Trap Tile, and they're, again, a fairly late game enemy. You don't see those for another couple of dungeons still. But they give an absurd amount of experience. And so you can run away from them, but why would you? That is almost guaranteeing your mages will get to 19 in time. Oh yeah, absolutely. The way that FF1 will work out is, like I say, like skill level will factor in, and a more skilled player, 9 times out of 10, I think, will win. Every so often, you will just get that one or two matches that someone gets really absurdly unlucky, and so there's a lot of matches that, in a best of 3 format, will feel like a 1-0 win or a 1-1 win. There's a lot of matches that will come down to seconds between the runners. In fact, we had a race just a couple of days ago that both runners were sub 127. They got the 2 fastest times in the tournament so far and were 12 seconds apart. And the fact that the 2 fastest times in the tournament so far were in the same race is just absurd. That was a good chunk of levels for Zance there, so I'm guessing that was enough to push to 19. I did see at least a level up for the Black Mage from the names. I didn't see whether that... I'm assuming that was 19. I didn't see whether both mages were at the same, but... It's actually one of the tiny things, saying earlier about Crrool's names. It's actually worth knowing when your characters are leveling up in this dungeon, because it means that you don't have to check the menu. So everyone having the same name is actually kind of a disadvantage here. A very minor one, but it's still a disadvantage. It's also worth noting that Zance having that warrior dead means that the experience is being split between 3 characters instead of between 4. So I don't know how that will impact on Crrool's levels, if at all. I didn't see if he did a bit extra in the level grind, but... No, absolutely. I can appreciate someone playing to the crowd. Absolutely. But it is worth noting that it's, you know, there is a cost to that, albeit a small one. Oh, okay, so Crrool may have done more of a grind to make up for the different route and the warrior revival. So I feel like I need to just reiterate quickly, I am relatively new to the community. I do not know the route that Crrool is doing inside out. I've seen it a handful of times and that's about it. I have no idea what those gauntlets were for. Crrool just picks up gauntlets and I have literally zero idea what they do. I'm assuming it's an equipment glitch for something else and not actually the gauntlets themselves, but... Alright, so Zance buying the fairy in a bottle, the giant's tonics for chaos later on. Oh, okay, so it's a spell item that they become. That makes sense. I'm guessing a faster one than the Judgment Staff. Oh, okay, so it's both. Okay, that's cool. Both the gauntlets themselves and the glitch item. Toku coming in with the knowledge, thank you. Appreciate everyone in chat trying to help out here, because yeah, I'm less experienced with Crrool's route. Go very in depth on Zance's, but ooh, Zance paying the price there for parking the airship in the wrong place. It's such a minor optimization, and it's one of those things that always feels bad when you get it wrong. Is you want to park the airship on the tile that you leave a town. And, oh, there we go, landed in the middle. But yeah, sometimes if you get that one square away and Zance just got an encounter on that one square. Also, Mangol is a really fun dungeon to look at in terms of speedrunning. You want to get as few encounters as possible moving through. And the best way to do that is to run in lava. Because you don't get encounters when you're in lava tiles, you only get them on the actual land tiles. And so the path they'll be trying to take will be minimizing the amount of actual land they walk on. there's sometimes like a fine balance between, is this fast and is this optimal in terms of encounters? It's how many people take the risk between, oh yeah, I can take fewer steps, but if I get a fight, then it's slow. Also, Crrool picking up the spells now. Okay, so that's another big divergence there. That also, again, explains the extra level grind on Crrool's side, is getting those spells a bit earlier, whereas Zance will go and pick them up after Mount Gold. Oh, that might be an unrunnable. That is a rough hit for Zance. So, Ogre Mages and Hellhounds are frustrating, to say the least. If you see them individually, you can run away. If you see them together, you cannot. The problem being that sometimes the game code will recognize, say in that situation, 1 Ogre Mage and 0 Hellhounds. And so even though there are 0 of them, they're still in that fight. And so it recognizes it as an unrunnable encounter. Also, Crrool taking an ambush there, and if that had been later into the dungeon, that could have been the whole... That could have been it. That could have been the run over. Because that was a double blaze, and AoE late into Mount Gold is a scary thing to face. So that's getting that... I think it was a 56-39 on the white flash for Marilith's death. Oh, and Crrool actually opting to heal partway through Mount Gold. Okay. Picking up those spells earlier, putting it to good use, and playing a little safer here. Mount Gold was one of those kind of like quietly terrifying areas in the Black Mage route where you don't really have the extra items to heal, and so if you just get ambushed towards the end of Mount Gold, you're probably just going to die. But it's not quite risky enough that you safety save it. You know, Cavern of Ice, Earth Cave, Chaos Shrine, you know those are terrifying locations. You're going to save almost every time going into them. Mount Gold, not really. The odds of you actually getting an encounter that is multi-target ambushed that kills you late on, pretty low. There's Crrool with basically a minute behind, but already has these spells. So Zance is going to drop a bit of time picking up the magic here. We might just be pretty much back to a neck-and-neck race here. Worth noting, however, Zance does have a bit of an advantage, albeit a small one, in Chaos Shrine, in being able to use spells for those encounters where Crrool will be using items for the unrunnables. Crrool has the ability to use Thundara or Flare, whereas Zance has Fire and Blizzara, which are used for 2 of the encounters there. Oh, Crrool hasn't picked up the Oxyale yet. Right, okay, never mind then, yeah. So I guess the length of time on these spells is about the same as going around to pick up all of that. Oh, so that's taking a route that I have not seen to on-rack. Works out though. Works out really nicely. Can land on the grass. So we just saw Zance pick up those spells. Haste, Blizzara. Healer and Teleport being the big ones. Definitely being the major ones. Crrool, on the other hand, will now see picking up the Fairy Bottle. I assume Giant Sonics. I didn't actually quite catch that there. And then going to take that Fairy Bottle to get the Oxyale. So Zance has a bit of a lead at this point, and Sunken Shrine and Chaos Shrine are definitely and the run to Lefenia later on are definitely 2 of the big areas that can change that. But there's just a lot of ambushes in each of those locations and a lot of terrifying encounters, unrunnables, things that can just really set you back. But assuming the RNG plays kind to both of them, definitely giving the advantage to Zance here. Like I say earlier, though, this is a best-of-3 match. This is only game 1. So still to play for, even ignoring the fact that this race can still change drastically at this point. Oh, that's a really... Okay, I actually really like that route for Crrool then. Getting the spells and then going to Mount Gold so that you get a faster airship ride to on-rack is really nice. Does, on the other hand, mean a longer level grind, so I can see the pros and cons, I guess, to each. So that's getting quite a few unrunnables so far. A few different menus as well. That's always the terrifying thing with unrunnable encounters, is where you see one using Thunder Arrow, one using Blizzard Arrow, one using Fire, like all requiring different things. It can cost some time, but if your menuing and movement is good, then it should be better than still using the Judgment Staff. Can go each way, though. So we'll see a Light Axe pick up somewhere in Sunken Shrine. Looks like we'll see it from 2F for Zance. There are 2 separate Light Axes in Sunken Shrine, one on 4F, one on 2F, and there's honestly not much difference between the 2 of them. Like, you kind of have to go out of your way for each. Oh, Crrool Judgment Staffing these Sahagin. So those are the ones that will die to Thundara. You have to use... Have to kill them, though. Sahagins, the Ghosts, and the Water Elementals are the 3 unrunnable encounters in here. Just each one takes a different spell. Ooh, Zance getting a bit of a low roll there. Just going for the Blizzard again rather than punching them. So Crrool getting to the Rosetta Stone. Oh, 1-step encounter for Zance. Thankfully both runnable, but 1 step is 1 step. So Crrool's lost a bit more time on the way to that Rosetta Stone. Oh, the room that Zance is in now with the Light Axe. This treasure chest is always a really interesting one to me, where if you stand from the bottom or the left, those are trap tiles. You will get an encounter, a random encounter in each of those. The one to the right, for some reason, does not have it. Which, to be honest, I assume is just a coding oversight, because I assume most things are a coding oversight. But... oh, gonna have to re-equip that Barbarian Sword on Zance's side. There we go. Yeah, Crrool was about a minute behind at Lich, which I think, honestly, was the last point where there wasn't a major divergence. So somehow, in the half an hour between those sections, there's only been about 15 seconds gone. Those 15 seconds have gone in favour of Zance. Although from the looks of things, I feel like Zance is going to be gaining a bit more time from this Sunken Shrine. He's had more encounters, but between having the Black Mage using spells and the fact that Crrool seems to have had more unrunnable encounters, feel like Zance should have something. Actually, no, maybe not. Looking at this now, though, they are on the same floor. So Zance beginning a Kraken fight, but Crrool is closing in quickly, and I was gonna say having a really good for like 1F, and didn't want to say it because commentators curse, and immediately as I'm thinking it, 6 enemy ambush there to take a bunch of time from Crrool. And there goes Kraken on Zance's side. So I didn't see the whites flash, but the fight ended at 1:06:05 for Zance there. Crrool has definitely closed this gap then. Part of that might come down to menuing, part of that might come down to the way the encounters played out, but this gap is significantly lower than it was at even the Rosetta Stone, let alone Lich. Down to maybe a 45 second gap there. This is a ridiculously close race right now. Like, they definitely have everything to play for. Chaos Shrine alone can make or break a race. Chaos Shrine can easily take a few minutes from someone. If one person gets only a 1 or 2 unrunnables, while another person gets you can take deaths in Chaos Shrine to White Dragon ambushes. You can get hit by ambushes by 9 Medusas that take forever to use their attacks. There are so many things that can change in Chaos Shrine alone. Zance, I want to say having a pretty standard Waterfall Cavern here, though to be honest, this looks reasonably fast. That is quite a low number of encounters. Right on cue, I thought I'd cursed him there with the Petrify right before the ribbon. Alright, so another menu here. This one's a little fun one because the entire purpose of the Gigantaxe here is just to get a ribbon. We don't actually care about the axe itself, we just want it so that it can become a ribbon. Oh, interesting, Zance is equipping the ribbon to the Black Mage here. I don't normally see that done until Chaos Shrine, so it's interesting to see how that makes a difference, if it makes a difference. I don't recognise this routing from Zance. If you get in the airship there and fly straight down, you pretty much arrive at Melmond, so... Oh, Zance has made it. Definitely not the route I'm used to, but it works. And yeah, that big fight that Crrool had there with the mummies compared to Zance's pretty nice Waterfall Cavern. Like, the Waterfall Cavern for Zance was really, really friendly. It's definitely given him a bit of an edge again. I think that's about a minute and a half between them now. on leaving Waterfall Cavern. Alrighty, so the run to Lefenia. This is always a big one for unrunnable encounters. It's not that long a trip, but there are only a handful of encounters you can get here, and well, Minotaur zombies are in a lot of them. I'm actually wondering now, is there a reason to not equip the ribbon when you get it to the Black Mage? Because I know the Black Mage route tends to equip it before Chaos. I just don't know why. And wow, Zance is getting Lefenian to hell. These Lefenians are awful. I mentioned NPC movement earlier in RNG factoring into that, and that is, yeah, one of the worst areas for it. But yeah, like having the ribbon for the Black Mage generally doesn't make a world of difference. There's a handful of things it impacts, like Earthquake is a thing that you might see later on. Scourge from Tiamat. There are Cockatrice in Mirage Tower. But oh, okay, so it keeps the intelligence from the Lordly Robes by having those on until Chaos, for the encounters in Chaos Shrine, I assume. That makes sense. That adds up. And I do know some runners have spoken about slightly missing that intelligence gap in Chaos Shrine. I think we actually saw one runner re-equip the Sage's Staff to the Black Mage just to make sure they made that difference and got that extra damage boost going in. Nope, Crrool getting even worse Lefenian luck, because of course. Never mind, guess the second one moved out of the way quickly, so they're about as bad as each other. I think Crrool had to only move 2 squares instead of 3, whereas Zance had 3 squares to move, but Zance's moved a bit quicker on the first 2. So into Mirage Tower. Vampire, suddenly runnable. You can run away from these here. Apparently, unless there's one. If there's only one, then it recognizes it as the same as the boss fight earlier, and you can't run away, but for the most part, fine. The only unrunnable here is Blue Dragon, which is incredibly rare. Oh, another unrunnable for Crrool. Minotaur zombies everywhere. Yeah, there are very few fights to worry about in terms of random encounters from either Mirage Tower or Flying Fortress. There are some. There are definitely some. Mind Flayer ambushes can definitely be a problem because they can paralyze you through the ribbon. I think Dark Wizards can appear in there as well, but for the most part, not much to worry about. Apparently running away can be a problem, though. Okay, so this Blue Dragon fight is forced. That's not the rare encounter. That's the reason it's unrunnable, is because it's a forced fight here. I really like the Flying Fortress music for some reason. You don't get to hear much of it though. Is that Crrool on the Force tile? No, that was just a blue dragon fight halfway through. Okay. I was going to say, that was a major catch-up from Crrool if that was the forced blue dragon, but no, still about half a floor to go to that one. Crrool has definitely closed this gap, though. There is everything to play for in Chaos Shrine. We are actually... Are we going to see a safety save? No. Okay. I have seen... There have been runners in this tournament. There are a few who will take safety saves there just in case of a war mech. Zance not even getting an encounter, though. That's... There's still a chance for one after Tiamat, but... Pretty nice so far. Especially since air elementals can be really annoying to run from, as Crrool was just experiencing. Geez, they are trading encounter luck. Zance had quite a bad Sunken Shrine where Crrool's was fairly good. Zance had a really good Earth Cave where Crrool's was terrible. Now Crrool has had unrunnables through Mirage Tower and Flying Fortress where Zance has had just an absolute tear through them. I swear this room that Crrool is in now, the room that wraps around. For anyone who doesn't know, you can go in any direction here. The room wraps around completely in every direction. The important thing is that you go horizontally twice, like 2 kind of blocks, and vertically twice. But I swear that room is the worst for encounters. Just the absolute worst. Wow, Zan's got no encounters on that floor, either before or after Tiamat. There goes Tiamat on Crrool's side. So Zance entering Chaos Shrine, we'll see a little cutscene that doesn't matter for anything here. And Crrool is a little under a minute and a half behind. Again, Chaos Shrine can easily swing that. Absolutely. Like, Chaos Shrine has taken 3+ minutes at a Tiamat split in races in this tournament already. Comfortably. Chaos Shrine has killed people multiple times in races in this tournament already. It is absolutely possible that Crrool comes back into this one just on Chaos Shrine alone. And of course that's taking a safety save here, because like I say, you can very easily die in Chaos Shrine. Terrifying location. Straight away, first encounter is unrunnable. Oh, Zance recognizing that those Ice Gigas actually have a huge amount of HP. They can be a real nightmare to kill sometimes. So losing those Lordly Robes earlier, replacing them with the ribbon, yeah, you probably want to get those extra hits in just to make sure the ice gigas fall. That's another unrunnable with a different menu. Oh, oh no. Zance down. Zance, there we go, yes, down. So, and there we have it. Straight away, that gap is closed. That gap is super tight right now. And Zance hadn't healed before saving. And 4 white dragons making the run. Ice storms. Crrool gets an unrunnable, but it's one of the best you can get. Zance out of there. Oh my. This is neck and neck. This is ambushed by white dragons. Oh god, they are trading RNG again. Now it's just like every encounter instead of every dungeon. Crrool's HP totals are pretty solid right now, though. Then again, Zance has an amazing Black Mage HP, but Ninja leaving a little bit to be desired. Oh, and then now they both get 4 white. Okay, now they're just getting all the worst RNG between both of them. Crrool gets away, takes the lead. Absolutely ridiculous. White dragons are widely regarded, I think, as arguably the most frustrating enemy in this game, because you can run away from them, but good luck. And the number of fights, like the number of runs they'll wipe, the number of races they'll end, and I mean they've put it down to the wire. And on the one hand, like, if you're in Zance's position right now, you know that everything can still change in Chaos Shrine. Like, it's the Chaos fight alone can easily swing this difference. On the other hand, you've been ahead for most of this race. How much does that pressure play into it at this point? Are you a little bit worried that the entire run might have just ended because you didn't heal at the start of Chaos Shrine? And I think it's always that step worse in terms of pressure when you know that you could have got away with it, you could have done something to fix it, and you didn't. Crrool, meanwhile, with the Barbarian Sword strats, gets some really fast unrunnable encounters in Chaos Shrine, because where Zance has to toy around with different menus and do I use Blizzara or Fire or whatever, Crrool just... The worst it gets for Crrool is 4 punches. Oh no, absolutely. I think not healing is 100% a mistake there, to be blunt about that. And it's one of those things that it's a mistake that is made, but more importantly, it's a very easily fixed mistake. And that's the kind of thing that when it goes wrong, you're like, why did I do this? This was terrible. Because you know you could have fixed it. You know exactly what you needed to do to not have this go wrong. And yeah, just there it is anyway. Crrool, meanwhile, getting a really easy Lich fight. And I guess that's one of the benefits of this route, is that Lich is far less threatening. Zance actually opting not to heal there for those few steps. I wonder if that was a time consideration or if that was a whatever, it's only 2 steps, I'll wait until the next floor kind of thing. Yeah, Crrool with a definite lead now. And Zance definitely, I think, at this point actually has more to make up as well. I feel like the Barbarian Sword route has the advantage at this stage. Did Zance just not safety save as well? I think Zance just neglected to safety before Lich, because he knows he's behind. He needs to make up that difference. Pays off, gets through the Lich fight very cleanly. Still about a floor behind, and the Kraken floor can definitely swing some more time. The number of water elementals you get on that floor makes a big difference to how quickly it goes. Especially from Crrool's side, if you see 6 water elementals, that is an incredibly slow fight. And there we have it. Yep, Crrool with 6 water rallies right on cue. That said, the rest of the floor was really good in terms of encounters so far, so probably not losing a huge chunk of time here. 1 bad fight is better than 3 kind of bad fights. Oh, Zance moved the wrong way and now has to fight Marilith again. That's a time hit. Yeah, that's meanwhile, like I say, Crrool got an amazing 3rd floor for we've got 1 unrunnable that was admittedly the worst unrunnable you can get on that floor, but just tearing through it otherwise. And there we go, Zance basically. You cannot run from that. Oh no. I have to, in a way, I have to wonder how much of this is pressure. Like I say earlier, Zance knew he lost time to not healing at the start of Chaos Shrine, and it's one of those things where when you know your mistake can be fixed and you know exactly what you did wrong, that can put that tilt on. That can bring in that tilt factor, that kind of, what am I doing? I'm choking, and that just sends it on a spiral. I did not know that was the Barbarian Sword strat up for equipment, and I love it. Crrool equipped clothes there to the White Mage so that she is the slowest character in the fight and will always heal at the end of each round. The rest of the route, the equipment on Zance's side is set up very specifically to make the White Mage the slowest. But yeah, slightly different equipment on Crrool's side, and it means that you just equip clothes. That's fantastic. Didn't know that. Also, Crrool going for a lot of Giants tonics here, it looked like. But I don't know how many of those are actually needed. The HP totals looked fine, but it's better to be safe than sorry at this point. You know you're ahead by a reasonable chunk at this stage. Nice, good first turn for Crrool. That is a fantastic second turn for Crrool. Physical attack on the warrior is exactly what you want to see. That means that those HP totals are absolutely perfectly safe now. And I think that probably means that Zance will not have a good way back into this. Or it would take something really drastic for it to happen here. Zance nearly pulling the same mistake I made in my race the other day, forgetting to ether up. Slightly slower menu for Zance here as well, having to... Oh wow, and does not safety save either. Again, knows he's behind and knows that the best way to win here is to get a ridiculously good Chaos fight and to take every risky strat possible. I would be surprised if we see Giants Tonics from Zance at this point. But Crrool, on the other hand, got to be getting close here. There's the first turn Blaze on Zance's side. And there we have it. Crrool coming in with a solid 131.16 by SRL time. So their second race will be starting in about 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes. So be super interesting to see how this run impacts their kind of mindset going into that, how they respond to this one. But Crrool taking that lead is definitely going to feel good for him and really bad for Zance, given the way that it happened. Getting a few spells here. Chaos not playing too friendly, but there we go. Zance coming in. Jeez. What a race that ended up being. That was back and forth the entire way. Just neck and neck the whole time. And then Chaos Shrine can swing a race. Chaos Shrine can do that to anyone. Alrighty. So they will be running their second race. They'll be handled as two separate races, so stick around. Just fairly sure it'll still be on this channel. Yeah, it'll still be here, so stick around. 20 minutes time. There will be the next race between Crrool and Zance here. And yeah, we'll see if Crrool gets the 2-0 or if Zance can draw it back and bring it down to a deciding match there. That was an incredibly close race though. That was really, really close towards the end. Absolutely could have gone either way, but one tiny slip up in Chaos Shrine can just dictate an entire race like that. It's absolutely the kind of game it is. Chaos Shrine is unforgiving. FF1 at times is unforgiving. When it's great, it's fantastic, and when it's bad, it's, oh, you know the game is out to get you. But that just goes to show just how close these races can be and just how much one tiny decision can factor into it. Alright, so with that, thanks for hanging out, everyone. I won't be around for the next race, but I'll be in chat for part of it, I'm sure. And yeah, stay tuned. This channel, 20 minutes time, unless they dive straight into the next one. And yeah, see everyone there.